Hello, this is the next of our studies in Mark, up to chapter 5. You can check out all the previous ones on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to do so if you're kind of just joining now and want to take part. So, first thing to do is pause this video, go get your Bible, read Mark chapter 5. Remember, while you're doing it, be thinking of everything that stands out to you or seems strange or gives you a question and kind of make a mental note of them. So pause the video, see you in a second. Okay, great. So here are the things that I wrote down. I bet you saw some different things as well. Love to hear about them. If you drop them in the comments below on whichever channel you're reading this on, that'd be great. Be really interested to see what you have to say. I suppose we start off with the story of Legion, as he'd often been known. That's not actually the man's name, that's the name of the group of demons. But what a poor man, that he is so afflicted by them. Find you reading it, you read the detail of the story, hopefully your compassion for him rises like it did for Jesus when he met him. And then I suppose the next shocking bit would be the pigs. What is going on? And this herd of pigs that then disappears, 2,000 pigs just gone like that, all dead in the sea. And then of course another question about why are there pigs? Are we not in Israel? Should they have been keeping pigs? What's going on? And then the people in the area we're in Gerasene seem to be scared of Jesus. Perhaps about the economics of what happens if he throws away more pigs, or just because of the man's power, because they've seen what this deeply demon-afflicted man has been able to do under the power of the demons, and Jesus sent them away with a word. And then Legion wants to, sorry, not Legion, the guy who was previously afflicted by Legion wants to go with Jesus, but he's not able to. Well, why not? Why is it that Jesus doesn't allow him to come with him? And then we move into the story of Jairus' daughter and the woman with the discharge of blood. I'm struck by the woman's faith. I think it's amazing. And then you almost have to laugh out loud at Jesus' ridiculous comment. You can tell from the disciples' responses how strange it is that he would say, well, who touched me? In a crowd where he's absolutely crammed around with people. Loads of people are touching him all the time. What a strange question. Who tugged on my cloak? And then he arrives at Jairus' daughter's house, and he continues to make strange and bizarre comments. She's only sleeping. They do know the difference between sleeping and dead. Surely she's not. So that gives us some questions. What's going on with all these different things that we're thinking about? I'd encourage you right now to pause in just a second, go back to the text, read it a second time, but with these questions in mind. Does the text answer them? Because most of the time we'll find that it does. So pause your video now, see you in a second. Okay, so here's some of what I think is going on. You've got to remember, as we saw last time, that the sea or water in the Bible almost always represents ancient evil, because it's the place where Leviathan dwelt, so therefore it's the place that demons come from, which means that to send these spirits into the sea is to send them back home. And remember that pigs are unclean in Jewish culture, which means that to send unclean spirits into unclean animals to go back to their home is deeply symbolic about who and what they are. But why are there pigs? Well, we've moved into an area north of the Lake Galilee, which is mixed Gentile and Jewish. So these are Gentile cities, the Decapolis, they're sometimes called in Mark. Which means it's not so strange that there are pigs around. So it's not, I've sometimes heard people preach, oh, the pigs shouldn't have been there. Well, it's not quite that. It's reasonable that they're there. And we kind of have to grapple with the fact that Jesus obviously isn't concerned too much about the livelihoods of the pig owners. He just wants to get the unclean spirits into the unclean animals out into the land of the demons. And then Legion is set free, or sorry, the man who was afflicted by Legion, I'm going to keep making that mistake as so many of us do, is set free, and he asks to go with Jesus, and he's told he can't, but yet he is the first person in Mark that we've seen that Jesus tells to go and tell others about him. This is the man who receives an evangelistic commission from Jesus. That's a huge deal. He sends him to preach. Now, we don't know, I'm surmising now, but based on where he's from, and the fact he just crosses back over Galilee to go back into Jewish territory, I wonder if the man's a Gentile, or at least a Jew who is not observant enough, that having him around will perhaps detracts from Jesus' mission among the Jews. But also he begins to seed this idea of preaching to the Gentiles that we see over the next few chapters in Mark is a rising theme for Mark. And then we get into Jairus and his daughter and the lady with the blood. I think it's amazing that this is a woman who is ritually unclean. She's not allowed to go into the temple. And for her to touch Jesus is to make him ritually unclean so that he cannot go into the presence of God, formally speaking, until he's gone through purification rituals. It's a huge deal negatively that what she's done in their culture and in the Old Testament understanding of the covenant and the economy of God. But then the opposite happens from what you'd expect. Jesus does not become unclean, the woman becomes clean, as his power goes out from him and her discharge of blood ceases immediately. And when he gets to speak to her, he says, "Your faith has made you well." When Jesus touches things that are unclean, he does not become unclean, they become clean. It's the opposite of what happens to everyone else. When Jesus touches sin, sin disappears, and the person afflicted with it finds themselves clean. Such a good message for us. And then I'm particularly struck by when he addresses the little girl. There's lots of questions raised by why is he called a little girl when she's 12, and kind of interesting things to chew on. But the bit that struck me is he says, "Talitha Kumi," little girl arise. A little bit like when he says to Lazarus when he's dead towards the end of John, "Lazarus come out," and Lazarus walks out the tomb. And the commentators always say, well, if he didn't say Lazarus come out, all the dead would have raised. Everyone would have walked out of the tombs. I do wonder if he hadn't said to the little girl, "Talitha Kumi," and just said Kumi, if the dead would have clawed their way out of the graves and we would have found resurrection dominating the world. There is a day coming when Jesus will shout from the heavens, "Kumi!" and the dead will arise and lift up in the air to meet him, and we will see him face to face and be transformed to be exactly like he is. And then our last question as ever, what does this tell us about Jesus? So I'd encourage you again to pause, go back to the Bible, maybe write it down this time to lead you into prayer, but write down, what do we learn about Jesus from this passage? See you in a second. Okay, here's my list. I'd love to hear some of your list if you'd like to pop it in the comments below. But Jesus has power over demons. He makes the unclean clean. He cannot himself be made unclean. He is therefore the sanctifier, the one who makes us holy. He is aware of all who come to him. You notice that woman who reached out to him. He heals those who come to him. He has compassion on everyone that he meets, and he raises the dead. Just pause and let that one sink with you for a little bit. He raises the dead. And the biggest message for us from this passage, I guess, he overcomes our sin and our shame. We see the man afflicted by legion. We see the woman afflicted by the blood. And the synagogue man whose daughter had died, all of whom experiencing shame. And Jesus overcomes their shame by overcoming their sin and by overcoming their material and physical problems and saying, "Come to me." So final question as ever, what are you going to do about it? How's this going to change you? How's it going to change the way you see Jesus? How's it going to change your relationship with him? Okay, see you soon, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.